Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Rachel Roth, Director of Grants and Programs at the Foundation for Financial Planning. I wanted to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded to allow for future viewing. During these difficult times for so many, financial guidance and advice for pro bono clients is more important than ever. To provide additional resources and knowledge to nonprofit leaders and financial planners engaging in this work, FFP has been hosting a series of webinars, including today's webinar on using financial counseling skills to better serve pro bono clients. I'd like to welcome our speakers today, Ryan Law and Brandy Baxter, and our moderator, John Dauphiné, CEO of the Foundation for Financial Planning. Ryan is an accredited financial counselor and a certified financial planner professional. He's the director of the Utah Valley University Money Management Resource Center and is currently serving on the AFCPE Board of Directors as past president. He is the author of the book, Student Loan Planning, and co-editor of the book, Financial Counseling. In addition to his work at UVU, Ryan has a website, ryanhlaw.com, where he teaches financial planners, coaches, and counselors how to use simple evidence-based action steps to provide outstanding client care. Brandy Baxter is an accredited financial counselor and a financial fitness coach. She is the owner and coach at Living Abundantly, where she coaches families to bring future financial goals into present reality. She is the author of the book, The Story of Three Little Divas, Reach Your Money Goals in 3 Steps Before You Huff and Puff and Blow Your Next Paycheck Away. Brandy is also the co-founder of Black Girl Financial Magic, an organization that supports and promotes women of color who work or who have businesses in personal finance. Brandy is a veteran of the United States Air Force, and she also currently serves on the AFCPE Board of Directors. Thank you so much to Ryan and Brandy for speaking with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. We're so glad you could join us for the webinar, and a big thanks to Ryan and Brandy for donating your time today to really give us a lot of great information. Really looking forward to it. One of the things we talk about at the Foundation for Financial Planning is the financial continuum of care that exists to support Americans as they try to achieve financial security. And when you think about it, there's all kinds of different allied professionals, certified financial planners, accredited financial counselors, and we're going to hear a little bit about financial fitness coach. That's another credential. And really these folks can come together and make a meaningful difference for particularly for low and moderate income families. And of course, there's some other designations and professional groups as well that contribute. It's sort of like healthcare. There's nurses, surgeons, different types of doctors, physician assistants. And we're going to learn and do a deep dive today, especially into the whole world of accredited financial counseling and financial coaching. And we're going to learn how these professions can actually complement each other and learn from each other, because so often that enriches all of our experience in delivering service. So it's going to be a great discussion and a pretty informal one. We're going to try to keep it pretty casual. If you have questions as we move along, feel free to put them in the chat box, and Rachel will be monitoring that, and then we'll try to get the questions asked as we move along, and then try to leave some time at the end as well. I should mention that a lot of the programs that the Foundation supports actually have accredited financial counselors, many of them on staff at the nonprofit, as well as using certified financial planner volunteers. So it's a really great symbiosis. And I think there's also a lot of further interconnectivity that we can foster. And so again, really excited to have the discussion today. The first thing, this is something actually that came from Brandy as we were thinking about this session. And the first thing is really what I want to ask all of you is the why. And I know we probably have a lot of CFP volunteers, pro bono volunteers right now online. And I'm curious, why do you step up to do this type of work and to help low and moderate income people achieve financial security. So I would love if you could type into chat some of your motivations, your why for this work, and we'll capture that as we move along. So let's get to our first question, and I'm going to ask this of both our panelists. Feel free to jump in. But really, what is an AFC? We've maybe folks have seen the designation, but would love to get your take. And Ryan, maybe start with you, because as a CFP and an AFC, would love you to kind of compare and contrast a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so the way that I see it is that a CFP, I teach in the CFP registered program. So it's our students, they go on to become CFPs. I wanted to become a CFP because really the CFP side is you're the expert in all of the areas to create a financial plan. So the taxes, the insurance, the estate planning, retirement, all of that type of thing. But the AFC still has some of those focus. There's always going to be overlap between any two financial designations. But the way that the AFC, that I focus on that, is that about 80% of the people in the country are under incredible financial stress and they struggle with money every day. And the AFC side really focuses on that side. So it's the practical money management skills. It's the debt management. It's creating a plan to get out of debt. It's dealing with student loans, looking at large purchases. But then we also look into really about how do you set up a goal? How do you help a client to make goals? We look at communication skills. So in order to set up that goal, you've got to be able to listen carefully to your client. So it's not just the hard skills, but it's also some of those soft skills as well.
That's great. And I know also, Brandy, you, in addition to being an AFC, have your FFC, which is financial fitness coach, which is super interesting, and would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Certainly. So like Ryan said, the AFC really provides the skills to work with clients in situations that are not typically covered by a CFP professional. And so when I came to this career field, it was really valuable for me to have that training of how to structure a budget, how to help someone establish a financial goal, and understanding a lot of the situational things that will hinder them from reaching that. When I went to pursue my financial fitness coach certification, what I gathered from that was not only the skills of the financial part, but more importantly, how to be with the client, how to empathize with the client, how to trust that the client is their own expert in themselves, and not to bring my pre-planned ideas, my preconceived notions, but really to trust that that client ultimately knew what was best for him or herself.
One of the things CFP Board recently announced is an enhancement of their curricula for CFP professionals, and that's going to include the psychology of financial planning. And I thought that was really interesting. And I was wondering if both of you could comment on that, and kind of how you see that fitting with the curriculum at the registered programs.
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in first because this is something that I've looked at quite a bit over the last week since it came out. So the new section, it's called the Psychology of Financial Planning, and it's all about behavioral finance and listening skills and counseling skills. And so it's this whole new section of the CFP exam. In the past, they had two topics that dealt somewhat with biases and heuristics and things like that, but this new section really brings all of that together. So that's going to be something that all of the registered programs over the next year are going to be implementing into their curriculum. I'm looking forward to how we're going to be doing that here at Utah Valley University. I was just talking with our program director about some of the steps that we're going to take to implement that here. And then that'll be on the test starting next year. So in 2022, that's when that information will be out there. But I'm really excited about this change. I think it shows a shift in the financial planning world, that it's not just the hard skills of knowing how to set up asset allocation for a portfolio or which trust to use, but it's about utilizing counseling skills and saying, okay, how do I listen to this client to make sure that I'm helping provide the best advice to them. So I'm really excited about this change. I think it's going to do great things for the profession.
Additionally, coaching is rooted in listening. And so to be able to incorporate, like Ryan said, the hard skills of how to create a financial plan, and now training CFP professionals to cultivate listening skills, trusting the client with their own financial situation, and also just understanding the behavior around money. A lot of the money challenges that people experience are related to their relationship with money and how they have, throughout their culture and their upbringing, interacted with money. And so being aware of those things, I think, will really enhance the profession.
Yeah, and I see we got a comment about empowering, and I know as we prep the session, Brandy, you talked about so many of the folks you meet with, have a sense that they're actually drowning, that there's a true kind of a crisis moment. And I'm wondering if you could give us an example or two of how you empower somebody who's really going through such an emotional, state of turmoil.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I like to think of as a coach is that I cannot give power to anyone. The beauty for me of coaching is this walking alongside someone on their journey of self-discovery. I trust wholly that all my clients know what is best for them, but because of this drowning sensation, they're so focused on the immediate situation that they often cannot see the resources, the skills, and the tools that are available to them. So my role as the coach is to be like that lifesaver that you throw out in the water. They can grab a hold of it to steady themselves, and then that gives them clarity of mind to say, I can make adjustments here, I can make adjustments there, and now I'm empowered myself. I am empowering myself to change my financial situation. When I'm working with clients who are immediately focused on credit card debt or car loans or housing, the first thing I want to do is remind them that they have everything that they need. They just need to reimagine how they are using those tools. And so for me, that's the most exciting part of this work, is because we're able to meet people when they're at a vulnerable state, and where the louder messaging would create shame, blame, and anxiety for them. We have the unique privilege of steadying the boat, holding the space for them, and allowing them to process all of these challenges with the clarity of mind that they have the skills, they have the tools, they just need to reimagine how they use them.
Ryan, great points, Brandy. And Ryan, I'm wondering if you have anything to add. It's such an important topic for the populations that, that run into some real financial headwinds and feel somewhat desperate.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would imagine that most people who are doing this pro bono work and the nonprofit work are seeing the same thing, where somebody comes in and they've got this big situation that they've got to deal with right away. So it might be the credit card debt, it might be foreclosure, it might be bankruptcy, all of these different things that the focus goes on that one thing entirely. It's hard to know to think about budgeting when you've got a foreclosure notice on your front door. It's hard to think about improving your credit score if your car is being repossessed. So there's these big things that we have the skills and the opportunity to help them with. I mentioned that I would say it's about 80% of families who are dealing with this day-to-day financial stress, and they need this help that an AFC or a financial fitness coach or CFP can provide. They really need that help, but it can be hard to see all the resources around you, as Brandy mentioned.
Yeah, Ryan, in a nutshell, what do you see as the core differences between financial planning, financial counseling, and financial coaching?
Yeah, I would say that financial planning really is about those harder skills, about creating a portfolio. So it's dealing with in most cases, those who are making more money or they're better off financially. So maybe they've saved up and they've got, a lot of financial planners have a minimum of, say, $1 million portfolio or something like that. And I know that's changing as well with the shift to a subscription model. So like XYPN and others are doing. But that's really what the financial planning world is that creating the portfolio, creating a financial plan, monitoring it, following up with them, critical important skills that everybody needs. But then the AFCs also create financial plans, but they're a little bit different. So when I meet with a client and when my students here meet with clients, we're setting up a budget and we're doing financial ratios. We might do a balance sheet with them depending on where they're at. We might be looking at how do we set up, or how do you make a big purchase like a car, or even looking at a home for some of our clients. So it's dealing with those day-to-day money management skills. And then financial coach, I'm going to let Brandy take that one. That was the third one. So she is a financial coach, so I'll let her jump in there.
Yeah, so to Ryan's point, absolutely focusing as a financial counselor when I'm working with clients. So let me clarify this. When I'm working with clients, I don't do this whole dance of coaching, counseling. Right. I view both of these as tools that I have access to. And when I'm with my client, what tool will serve them the best? So as a financial coach, my focus is always that client's best interest and how can I serve them better? So the difference is when I'm operating with the tool of a counselor, I am providing very specific information, very specific details, in the sense I am telling the client. When I am using the tool of a coach, I am practicing active listening. I am establishing rapport, building trust, and we're designing a plan, designing actions that moves that client closer to their goal. And so it's not me telling, it's a lot more of me listening so that the client can build trust in him or herself by hearing themselves develop the plan for them. And that builds a lot more connectedness to the goal. It really strengthens their motivation to reach the goal because it's not me telling them what to do, it's me supporting them on something that they have already decided to do.
Yeah, I love it. Ryan, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, just one thing. I think that that's such an important thing that Brandy talked about. I don't put on my CFP hat and then take it off and then put on my AFC hat and take that off. It is, I utilize the skills no matter what the appointment is. So if somebody's coming in and they have, maybe they received an inheritance and they just want to talk about setting up a plan for their kids' college education, maybe that's more on the CFP side. But again, it's not removing one hat and putting the other on. I feel like getting these additional skills to the AFC, getting the counseling skills, getting the coaching skills, even the financial therapy skills, all of those are complementary and they work together so that I can serve a broader range of clients.
We got a related question. Would the AFC or coach perform debt counseling, or do you usually refer people to credit counseling, presumably a nonprofit credit counselor?
So I do work with clients on debt counseling. However, it depends on the level of involvement that this client will need. I work in private practice, so I don't have a team. If someone needs someone that can really, like Ryan said, support them for a duration, a lot more check-ins with them, I'm not the right person for them. And so then it would be a better referral opportunity for me. And so it depends on who they're working with. And I think that's also important for no matter what your designation is, it's important for you as a financial professional to know where your boundaries are. What are you qualified to do? What are you trained to do? And what are you skilled at doing? I have a lot of training, but I'm skilled at certain things. And so for me, it wouldn't be a long-term counseling situation where you need to walk through and to write letters and to do all those things to your creditors. But if you need a different level of support, then I can provide that for you. So it just depends in my situation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I was talking with a credit union recently who is getting financial counselors at a bunch of their branches. And they said that the way that they're training their counselors is that they need the client to be making, 30 to 40,000, somewhere in that range and above in order to meet with them. They said if they're below that and they're struggling with poverty, their coaches aren't currently trained to be able to handle that. So they are doing more referrals to nonprofits where they can help them. Now, just like Brandy said, I might have a student come in or a client come in who is just dealing with some debt and they just don't know how to handle it. So maybe I run a scenario for them, a power pay scenario where we determine the best way to pay down that debt. So that's something that is more likely. But if somebody's dealing with a pervasive debt, they've got this large amount of debt that's going to have to be you're going to have to be writing the letters, just like Brandy said, and making phone calls. That's not something that we do specifically, but more referrals on that side of it.
Yeah. And is there, within kind of the non pro bono, but actually paid CFP practice area, and then the AFCs, are there referral networks? How do those, is there cross-pollination, I guess I would say, between the professions? To what extent is that happening today? And, should more of that be happening, not just in pro bono, but also within the paid environment?
Actually, I think that is the perfect blend of skills. To Ryan's point, we need all of these skills to work with our clients. And so rather than one individual trying to have every certification in the financial services space, healthy relationships with other financial professionals are key. I have a strong relationship with the financial planner who, when clients come to her and they really need more budgeting assistance, she and I do a warm handoff. She tells them who I am, how I'm going to serve them. And then I work with them. And once we kind of get to a place where they're better prepared to work with her, then I refer them right back to her. And so I feel like that kind of, like you mentioned earlier, John, that symbiosis is really important, and it serves the client, because then I'm able to stay in my zone of genius. I'm able to stay in the space where I'm skilled. She's able to stay in the space where she's skilled, and the client ultimately wins because they're getting two highly skilled professionals to help them navigate their financial situation.
I think that we need more of that cross-pollination, though. I think that you'll often find AFCs, like I've got a good referral of CFPs that I can refer people to when it's time for them to move over to that side. I don't see it as often in the reverse, though, and I think we need to see more of that where but one of the challenges, where do we all get together? Counselors go to the AFCPE symposium, financial planners go to FPA, or maybe one of the other ones. So I think we need to find ways that we can come together and share ideas. So this is a perfect example where we're able to get together. We're able to talk to the financial planners out there, the nonprofit organizations. So that's one of the things that I really like about the foundation, is that we're bringing these two groups together. So I think that this is a perfect example of improving that cross-pollination.
Absolutely. Sorry, John, just really quickly, to Ryan's point, my financial planner found me in an online group. And so maybe when we look at our professional organizations, we view them as training opportunities for us in our specific designation. However, there are other social networks where you can meet other people and you can connect. And maybe for the financial planners on this call, maybe you can go into some of your social groups and say, are there any AFCs? I'd like to have coffee with you and see how we can do some cross-pollination, see how we can work together, maybe give presentations together to your clients or just whatever, but really taking the lead, because as an AFC, we sometimes don't feel that the financial planner is looking for our services. And so the financial planner may want to be the one to take the lead to say, I'm looking for an AFC to just collaborate with.
Yeah, no, I love the idea about leveraging social media and our networks. And I should also say, a lot of the programs that the foundation funds, because they do have AFCs and CFP volunteers, that's happening on the ground in some cases. But I think, Ryan, to your point, more structural referral networks and interconnection could be very useful and beneficial to both. I'm curious, the typical AFC, what does their career look like? I know you're both on the board of the AFCPE. How does it play out, and how does it contrast with the typical CFP professionals' experience? Brandy, you want to take that one?
Sure. So the AFC experience is wildly diverse because our profession seeks to serve the needs of those that need our services. I happen to come to the AFC to become an AFC through my military affiliation. Becoming an AFC was a super fantastic way to serve the military community and have a career that was flexible every time my husband got a reassignment. And so for me, that was the number one attraction, something that I could take with me everywhere we went. Once I became a member of the organization, I met all of these amazing professionals who serve across the spectrum. We have AFCs in education, we have AFCs in banking, we have AFCs in nonprofits, we have AFCs on military installations. Like, the scope of where our services are needed is very broad. So I'm going to let Ryan talk about kind of how the career field parallels with those of CFPs, but the opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
And I know there's so much service that goes to military and veteran households. And I think Zyters is a large service provider in the space. And interestingly, there used to be more programs on bases that CFPs would volunteer for. And then there were some, back in kind of in the past, there were some issues and they really clamped down on access. And unfortunately, some of that prevented CFPs who were doing great work from getting on base and helping. And so that was unfortunate, but I think, clearly there are some bad actors too, not CFPs necessarily, but just bad actors trying to sell questionable products on base and things like that. So that the Department of Defense kind of did a crackdown, as I understand it. Ryan?
We have a few questions related to this topic. Brandy, if someone wants to gain more exposure to credit or debt management and spending habits, would they pursue a AFC or an FFC designation?
So they would pursue the AFC. So just to clarify, the AFC provides you the foundational education and skills in working with low to moderate income populations or individuals who need that debt management, budget, etc. Financial coaching is more focused on the coaching methodology with an understanding of the financial implications associated with it. So you cannot get an FFC unless you either have an AFC or you have completed the AFCPE's Money Management Essentials course.
Great, thank you. And then, how do AFCs charge for their services?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Most of my clients are university students, so they're paid through the university. So I'm going to let Brandy take this one because I think on the private practice side, she has much more to say on that.
Thank you. So yeah, I work in private practice, and my fee scale is I have chosen to base my fee scale on the value I provide and the level of experience. So when I was brand new, my rates were super below market. And as I acquired more skill and more experience, I began gradually raising my rate so that it was commensurate with my skill and education.
Thank you.
One other point, Rachel, just on that same thing. It's also important that you understand the client you're serving, right? I'm serving a population of folks who are coming to me because they need help managing their money. So part of my intake process is asking them if they're currently behind on any bills and asking them what their current cash flow looks like to the best of their understanding. I never want to put a client in a situation where they're like, I need help, but my services are out of their price range. So I also have a relationship with a local nonprofit organization that has a financial coaching program free of charge to anyone, no matter what their income level is. And so when a client shares with me that preliminary information, I generally can tell if they will be able to afford my services and that I can provide value to them at that price point. And so if it's not a good fit, I have no problem referring them to the nonprofit organization.
That's great. And that's so dynamic and also speaks to the financial continuum of care, not just from different types of credentials, but different types of income levels of the client. And what they can afford and sustain. So that's really interesting. We often hear from CFP professionals who want to do pro bono, but they haven't done it yet, that they're nervous. And we have our Pro Bono 101 training, which I'm going to plug. It's on our website and it's free, and you get a CE credit if you're a CFP. And we try to instill some confidence. But a lot of times we hear, well, I'm used to dealing with very high net worth clients in my paid practice, and I'm nervous. What pointers would you have for these folks, including, are there aspects of the AFC, that they might want to look at or might want to pursue? I'll start with you, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah. So as people were putting in their whys, it was fun to read those because I'm really seeing there's a passion here, and there people want to help and they want to be involved. They want to give back. Maybe they grew up in a lower income household and now they're a CFP, but they still want to give back. And so I've really enjoyed reading those whys and seeing why people want to get involved. But I understand that it's a whole new experience for you to step into this world and say, okay, I'm used to designing a portfolio, but now I'm going to be designing a budget for the first time for somebody, or just some of those simple money management skills, or creating a debt management plan. So I would add, John talked about the Pro Bono 101 course. I would recommend that you do that. I've gone through that course. John and I were looking at that earlier this year. I think there's some excellent information there. You can also go through, Brandy mentioned AFCPE's Money Management Essentials. That's a great foundation for the AFC, or to just get some additional knowledge in that area. It's not as deep as the AFC is going to be, but if you're just looking to add some additional skills, then maybe that money management course Money Management Essentials would be one that you want to go through. If you want to help military families more, I know that AFCPE is either working on or finished up an essentials course for the military and military money. So there's a lot of resources out there. I think the foundation has some great things. AFCPE has some great things as well. Reach out. There's lots of places that you can be referred to.
Yeah, the resources, I will say too, having gone on the AFCPE site, great resources there, and a great basis in how to serve lower income families and households. So that's terrific. I also know, I spoke to Rebecca Wiggins, who heads up AFCP, and she mentioned a really exciting new initiative on cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm wondering if you could, tell us more about that.
Brandy, I thought.
Okay, I'm like, you want me to talk about that one?
Yeah, I thought you were working on that. Maybe I misunderstood. So.
Yeah, no worries. So one of the things that we are doing as an organization is we have worked with outside consultants who are providing a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And that has been so impactful to how our organization is operating. And it also is, as a participant, it's influencing the way I work with my clients, how I approach my clients. And I think it's important for this conversation, especially as someone who's used to working with high net worth individuals, and you're working with someone whose financial situation is drastically different. It's important to see the person for who they are first, as a human being with feelings, emotions, and life circumstances. And then when you allow yourself to see them beyond the numbers, then you're moved to a place where you can open up for empathy. And I think that's the real heart of the matter, is not so much all of the skills that we bring, but recognizing that in this work, it's truly heart work. People are looking for help and support. And because of the shame and the blame and all of the things that are associated with financial mistakes, the very fact that they have come to you and they're sitting across from you, or they're talking to you on the phone or whatever, has taken courage. So honor that, honor the courage that it took for them to come to you. And then second of all, allow them the space to share their reality with you. And then after you have listened attentively and empathetically, then allow your tools to be what you use to help them change their financial situation. Not your ideals, not your pre-planned idea, and not even your worldview. Sometimes we're accustomed to having access to insurance, car insurance, or a second car, or even a garage. I sometimes take for granted that I have a garage, and some of my clients don't even have a garage. And so being really careful to check my worldview at the door and sitting in that space with that person and as best as possible, stepping into their interpretation of their reality really opens up for some cultural awareness and sensitivity in how we serve our clients.
Yeah, great points.
I'll just add a couple of things to that. So AFCPE has had a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force, which they're really looking at that lens and saying, what do we need to do to help more of our coaches and counselors see the world not just through their own lens, but looking at that there's other lenses out there, that people see things in a different way. So that's been an important thing. And then they're also working on a diversity, equity, and inclusion essentials course to make sure that as many of our coaches and counselors can get that knowledge and see things through a different lens. So I think that those are some great things that AFCPE specifically is doing to bring awareness around this issue and to get more people trained in that area.
And related to that, many firms are also increasing their commitment to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can wealth management firms that employ primarily CFPs help? Like, what would this look like?
So thank you, Ryan, for bringing it back to the DEI task force, which I'm a member of. I totally like space on that. But to your question, Rachel, one of the things that our task force is doing is making sure that there are diverse individuals in the conversation. So one thing I've learned in working in this space is there is no one size fits all. Every organization has its own culture and norms and way of doing things. And so if the organization wants to shift in that area, it's important that you have as many stakeholders as possible at the table, representing multiple levels of the organization, from the client that you are serving to the executives, so that each person's perspective can influence the direction that the organization wants to go.
Yeah, I think that new course is very valuable when issued. When will that be done, Brandy, Ryan? The course that AFCPE will?
I honestly don't have a timeline on that.
Yeah, either.
I will tell you this, as
put you on the spot,
an organization,
I think it's going to be very valuable. So.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, as an organization, we hold ourselves to a very high standard. So when it is released, we want to make sure that it represents our organization well. So we will definitely keep you all posted once that gets released.
Yeah,
great.
Let me speak to one thing, John, before we move on. So, Brandy talked about the importance of having so many different voices. And that's one thing that I've really enjoyed about being on the AFCPE board, is that there's people of different ages, we've got different religions, different races, we've got males and females and just so many different people on that board, that we're not just looking at things through one specific lens, but we're getting all of the voices, which I find so valuable. Because I don't understand, what it's like to grow up poor. I mean, I grew up in a middle income family, but somebody else who grew up poor, they're going to have a different lens and a way to look at things. And so I think bringing together, just like Brandy said, as many voices as possible, so that we're representing those who are out there. So if you're a wealth management firm and you're looking to, just like Brandy said, increase the stakeholders, get people involved who can really speak to the various voices that are out there.
Yeah, one really interesting difference between the CFP population, which by the way is much bigger, as you folks know, than the AFC population, I believe by quite a bit. But it's a much more diverse group of professionals than we see in the CFP population. Of course, there's many efforts now to look at that issue, and there's the Center for Financial Planning, others, many firms have good initiatives, but that also, I think, factors into to issues of cultural competency and the like. And so I think that's a really interesting difference currently between both professional groups.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, some other questions, and I want to make sure we open it up to the audience.
Yeah, we had a few questions related to technology. So are there any tools or software that you use or would recommend using to help your clients? So yeah, we can start with that.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so in the financial planning world, there tends to be a lot of fintech solutions. There's a whole fintech conference that you can go to. So yeah, financial technology is a big thing, especially in the financial planning world. In the counseling world, we don't use a lot of technology. I mean, I might use an Excel spreadsheet or budgeting software like Mint or YNAB or one of those budgeting apps out there. We use PowerPay often, which is a software that can help you determine how quickly you can pay down your debt, and if you add $50 on a month. But there's not just one specific solution that we utilize with all of our clients. For me, it's more about that first appointment. For me, is really just about listening to the client as much as possible and trying to talk as little as possible, and just learning what is their situation, what are they dealing with, what are their goals, what are their values, that type of thing. And that's just, in a lot of cases, like my new counseling offices that I'm designing here at UVU, it's a love seat and 2 chairs. There is no computer in the room. It's an opportunity to sit and chat and get to know each other. So it's very different from the traditional model where there's a desk in between and somebody's typing everything into the computer. So the software that I utilize here is much less, I would say, than in the financial planning world.
Yeah, there's a specific question about the Vertex debt reduction spreadsheet. Have you heard of that? And have you used it to help clients create a debt reduction plan? Okay.
I use it a lot.
Oh, great.
I like it too, because similar to PowerPay, it allows the client to see if they increase their payment here, how will it impact their overall goal for paying down debt? Yeah, I love that one.
One point I'll add about technology is, when the robo advice, came out, there was all kinds of press that it was going to, put the human advisor out of business, and of course that didn't happen. And now tech is, fused into paid financial planning with people still, right, human advisors, and we're seeing that human component as really invaluable to the engagement. And one thing we've noticed at the foundation is lately, I think in part because of COVID, we're seeing more and more budgeting and cash flow and savings apps and tools, digital tools that are coming out. And some of them purport to, just be the whole answer for a lower income person. And our belief is that there will always be a need for that human, mediator, facilitator, coach, counselor. It's such an important aspect of helping folks. And so we are actually on a journey ourselves at the foundation to try to work with technologists and the fintech field and try to accelerate the development of these tools, but always within the view of how does it fit with the human advisor, be they an AFC or a CFP or other, and the client, and how does that really work best. So more to come on that, but that's definitely something that's important as we move along.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to say too, John, while technology has its place, there is nothing greater than human to human empathetic connection.
Yeah.
Because so much, as we discussed earlier, so much about our money experience is rooted in emotion, and technology has not evolved to the point that it can address that. And so while technology is great, I want all of us on the audience and those on the panel to remember that our clients need us. They need someone that can look them in the eye and assure them that it's going to be okay, and that we are qualified, skilled, and experienced to support them along their journey.
Yeah, I love it, and I love the underlying trust that we can infer from that kind of a relationship, because I think that is so much of what can truly set the table to help folks.
Yeah, like Brandy said, it's the empathy, it's the validation, it's all of those skills, the listening skills that's not available through technology. And so I've never believed that technology is going to replace an advisor. It can enhance the practice that an advisor has, but it's never going to replace, because like Brandy said, I mean, I'm not going to get empathy from PowerPay. I can plug everything in there, but it's not going to say, hey, it's okay that you're in debt and that you're making a plan. That's great. It's going to spit out the numbers. So I think it's important that we recognize that those skills are things that we should be working on, those so-called soft skills. I call them essential skills, the listening and the validation and all those types of things.
Yeah, one question I've seen come through is about number of meetings. So when you're trying to help somebody who's maybe drowning in debt, You know, and you need to build trust and you need to build that affinity, but you also perhaps have limited time. Perhaps you're volunteering your time and you're trying to help a whole lot of people. How do you think about the amount of, you know, meetings or, you know, the length of the engagement to kind of get people in? And I realize it's going to vary, but do you have any sort of rules of thumb around what it takes to get people into a better financial position?
So I like to think about it as a behavior change. And so borrowing from the weight loss community, 21 days approximately is how long it takes to develop a new habit. And so when I work with my clients, we work in 3-month increments. And so since I'm in private practice, they really are paying for my time and my knowledge and my skills. And so when we approach the engagement, we set measurable milestones and goals that can be accomplished in 3 months with the emphasis on behavior change. So I don't allow my clients to talk about budget and credit and retirement and all at the same time. We really focus in on let's develop habits to help change the behavior in one area at a time.
Yeah. I think that that's critical is not trying to deal with everything at once, because then they're just not going to do anything. I mean, she mentioned the behavior change science that's out there, and it shows that they're not going to change everything at once. It's in a lot of cases, it's very small incremental steps, but they're making progress, and that's what we're looking for. So in the financial counseling world that I work in here at the university, we may see a student one time. Maybe they just come in because they've got some questions about their student loan, and then we may see a client for 2 or 3 semesters where they continue to come back. Maybe now they've got questions about a job offer that they're getting, and they're evaluating their benefits versus, you know, student loans early on. So that there's so many variables that go into that, but it's meeting them where they are and then knowing what their goals are and helping bridge that gap between the two over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, as much as the advisor is busy, often families, you know, people are busy with their own lives. And so you have to find that sweet spot between what they can commit to and the time that the advisor or the volunteer may have as well. Rachel, any other questions?
Well, are there any communication tools you feel help with clients, conversations, stories, charts, to help the clients share how they're feeling, and
or to make them, you know, kind of understand your services and want to engage?
Yeah. I'll throw in a couple of things, then I'm sure Brandy has some additional ones as well. But I think, you know, if you want to go, you can go the coaching route, and you can get the FFC if that's something that you really want to do. I think that you're going to learn incredible skills there that she can talk more about. AFCPE is working on another essentials course, and I know because I'm the primary author of it. It's a communication essentials course, and it's going to be out, I think July is what we're aiming for. All the content is written now, and we deal with all of these things like listening skills and behavior change and stages of change, and all these different things are part of that course. And so that's going to be available, like I said, in about, I think it's July that is the launch date for that. So communication essentials through AFCPE. And then, you know, Brandy, you probably got some additional resources you can recommend as well.
Yeah, certainly. So a couple of things that just came to mind. One of the most impactful charts that I use, it's called the financial wheel of life. It's used in lots of different other professions, but essentially you have the client chart on this wheel where they think their current situation is on a scale of 1 to 10. They mark it, and then where would they like it to be? So if I mark that my savings rate is at a 5 and I want it to be at a 9, then they mark that. And that opens up conversations to, okay, well, what about your current state would you like to change? And that helps them to start looking beyond where they are currently to where they want to be. And I leverage the where they want to be as part of, well, then let's use that for the motivation to get to where you want to go. A lot of times the misguided approach is we spend so much time talking about where they are. They know where they are and they don't like it. So I adopted, primarily through my coach training, a future focused look. Well, where do you want to be? And so let's spend our energy focusing on where you want to be and then making steps in that direction, not so much focusing on what's happening right now, because that's where you do not want to be. That's the first chart that comes to mind. Another communication technique is listening to what the client says and challenging yourself to have a 1 minute pause of silence. And that's very difficult for us because we have so much knowledge, we want to share so many things. But if you can challenge yourself to be comfortable in the space of silence, you really create a relationship with your client where they feel comfortable to think and process and not always have answers, and to experience what they're feeling, and then they're comfortable to share. So those are the two tools I would probably recommend: the financial wheel of life, and you as the practitioner being comfortable in silence.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I actually had to skip a beat, just a beat, to just show I could do it for like just a second, Brandy. Yeah, because we always rush in, right? So that's great. That's a great insight. That's a great insight.
Have you used the CFPB Financial Empowerment Toolkit?
Yes, I have. And I also use their, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh yeah, just interested in learning your thoughts on that.
I love the tools that the CFPB makes available, and their money wellness assessment has been awesome, especially for that first engagement, kind of getting the client to think about where they are. I do apologize. Initially, I went to a coaching tool, not necessarily a financial tool. So that's kind of why I got off track. But yeah, all of the tools provided by CFPB are great, great resources to tap into.
Great. Yeah, I agree.
And we do, on our website at the foundation, we do link to a lot of them as well. If folks want to check that out, ffpprobono.org. And I'm sure AFCPE has links. I'm curious, if I'm an advisor, and I hear about a class that AFCPE is going to be offering, like the one you've been developing, Ryan, how do I engage? Should I go to the website and pay a fee? And then is it a digital experience? Is that generally what I should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend that people join AFCPE. The membership is fairly inexpensive, and it's a way that you can get all of those updates, but you don't have to join in order to take those essentials courses. You do get a discount on some of those if you are a member of AFCPE. So it would be worthwhile for financial planners that are looking to move into that direction to go to AFCPE, consider joining, take a look at the various things that are there, look at the AFC certification, look at the essentials courses that are available. And in a lot of cases, they'll have a mailing list. So if you want to be updated about, say, the communication essentials course, you can log in and sign up for a mailing list there.
Great.
If I could address Marcel's question, she said there can be so much urgency involved with somebody who is in a financial crisis. I love the emphasis on behavioral change, but sometimes you have to put out fires in practice. And I would say, yes, and Brandy and I both talked about that earlier, that sometimes you do have to deal with the immediate crisis. But one thing that I really like to look at is what caused that crisis? What was the money scripts, or what were the habits and the attitudes and things that caused that crisis in the first place? Was it just totally out of the blue? Or is it something that, if we don't fix the behavioral side of it, that is going to continue to come up in the future? So I think it's important to look at, yes, you may have to put out that fire, but can we avoid that fire coming up again in their life if we can deal with the behavioral side as well?
Absolutely. And I actually had a situation where a client came to me and she was in what I consider financial crisis, immediate need. And that's not the service that I provide. And so I referred her to the nonprofit organization, and they were able to assist her. And to my surprise, about 6 months later, she contacted me via email and said, "Thank you for the referral. They helped me out. Now I'm ready to work with you." And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that, but okay, let's get to work." And so there are times when the fire is of the priority. But that goes to what we said earlier, knowing what your skills are and what you're good at, and having a referral network of other people who can serve in areas that you're not that skilled in serving in.
And that raises the topic of public benefits and assistance that may be available to people who are in crisis. So I guess a question there would be, is the typical AFC going to know about those things, those benefits? Or would that be more for an AFC that's working at a nonprofit that's serving, that quite the lower income strata of income?
Yeah, I would say that an AFC in a lot of cases should know about what's available, but when it comes to deep knowledge of those programs and different benefits and things that are available, I would say that the nonprofit world is more in tune with that. And again, it depends on the practice. I mean, if you're working with people who are strictly low income, then you should have a deep knowledge of those areas so that you understand the SNAP program, you understand WIC, you understand housing assistance and these various things that are available. But for us here at Utah Valley University, we do tend to refer some of them over to the nonprofit side, or we can help them connect with a food bank if they're hungry right then. We can do some of those things, but I feel like the nonprofit world in a lot of cases is better set up to help with that type of situation.
Yeah, and I know often CFP volunteers will rely on the nonprofit program director and staff to help the client navigate those benefits and those programs, because they can vary a lot by county, by state, and be somewhat confusing.
Yeah. Trudy asked in the chat about the new topical areas that are going to be tested in 2022. So it's psychology of financial planning, and if you just search for the 2021 principal topic areas, you'll be able to see exactly what. I think there's 5 topics within there: behavioral finance, principles of counseling, biases, heuristics, things like that. So it's all, the CFP board has put that information out there. And one other thing I want to address, Mike asked about acronyms. We've thrown out a lot of acronyms today. So AFCPE is the organization. So afcpe.org, where you can take the AFC exam, you can do the essentials courses. And then the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that's the toolkit that we talked about. They have a financial wellness scale that we use quite a bit. So it's important. Yeah, we've thrown out a lot of acronyms. So make sure that people have those straight.
Yeah, I think I've spent too much time in Washington, D.C. I don't think to define the acronyms, so thank you, Ryan, for bringing that clarity. And also, if folks have questions, don't hesitate afterwards to shoot us a note, and we'll try to get them answered from Ryan and Brandy. So I know we're pretty much out of time. Any final questions, Rachel? Do we have time for one more?
I don't think so. There is one question about if a client is looking for a financial planner and a financial coach counselor, does it make more sense to find one person with all of the designations or competencies, or would it be better for the client to have 2 separate advisors?
So I'll jump in really quickly. I think it depends on who the client can get their needs met with. Who's the best person for that client? It's totally up to the client. Again, I'm very self-aware of what I will and will not do, where I am skilled and not so skilled. And so I think it's important that while I may have the knowledge, it's the skill level that I most want my clients to benefit from. And so I would want the client to feel that they have the authority to make the decision that's best for them. That one is really up to the client.
Got it. Well, thank you. I want to really extend our thanks again to Ryan and Brandy, and to all of you for participating. Hopefully you got some good information out of it. And also, we hope this is just the beginning of better connectivity between the AFCPE and the foundation, and CFP volunteers and AFCs, as well as FFCs too. So lots of alphabet soup, but lots of amazing professionals who are all working to help lower income people. So thanks again, everyone. And we hope to see you next time we do a webinar. Take care.